Chapter 34. Chapter 34. Danger. Goblin Slayer. Just a bunch of goblins. Leave it to us Blizzard heroes to handle. At this moment, several people clad in silver armor walked into the tavern. The diamond-colored badge hanging on their chest plates was particularly eye-catching. They were a diamond-ranked adventurer team, with an average level around 60, their strength unquestionable. Each of them was undoubtedly a seasoned warrior who had brushed with death countless times. The leader of the Blizzard heroes was named Cecil, a fairly young man exuding a noble aura. Seeing him, many people politely raised their glasses in greeting. It's Lord Cecil. How is the Count faring these days? Thank you for asking. All is well. Cecil removed his helmet as he responded. Like Loder, he was of imperial blood, his family holding the rank of Count. Isn't Lord Cecil known for hunting high-level monsters? What brings you here to deal with goblins? The tavern owner asked while starting to pour drinks. Taking a sip from his glass, Cecil immediately passed it to someone beside him. Clearly unaccustomed to such inferior wine, he then said, "It's because of my useless cousin. He got captured by goblins, so I plan to handle it personally." I see. The tavern owner felt a bit awkward. After all, that had been his best wine. However, he didn't mind too much since nobles certainly had different tastes. At this moment, an even more arrogant voice sounded from the entrance. "Ha, Cecil, you think you can handle it all by yourself? Did I come here for nothing then?" An old man with white hair slowly walked in. He leaned on a long red crystal staff, his long white beard matching his fully white hair. Wearing a gray wizard hat that looked extremely old and pointed, he made quite a peculiar sight. What? The gray hat wizard. Gru? He's here too. The tavern erupted in excitement once more. This gray hat wizard was said to have been an evil wizard in the past, feared by many. That's why he was so audacious. But later on, for some unknown reason, he turned to good and established the Grey Hat Heroes. When he founded his group, they were immediately granted a diamond-level badge. Several gray-hatted wizards followed behind him. Cecil didn't get angry. Instead, he maintained his noble courtesy. "Master Gru, it's an honor to meet you." Cut the flattery. I'm broke. Really broke. If you don't want me involved, pay up. 1,000 gold coins and I'll leave now. Though Gru looked old, his voice was strong and powerful. It was as if he had already decided the outcome. Cecil smiled wryly. 1,000 gold coins. That's no small sum. Master Gru, how about we negotiate? No negotiation. Not a coin less. If you don't have the money, I'll go to your father for it, Gru said firmly, looking like an old scoundrel with no respect for others. While they were arguing, a voice rang out from the corner of the tavern. How amusing. You think just because the Sword Saintess is lying low, you can put on a show? Don't forget, that cold-blooded woman is also in Brighttown this time. The cold-blooded woman. Who is that? Never heard of her. You idiot. You don't even know her. Epic level adventure. Lucy Lena. She leads the cold-blooded mercenaries. Damn. Why are all these dangerous people showing up? I heard she'll kill good people for money. Several philanthropists have died by her hand. Shh. She might slit your throat. Shut up. The mention of her name silenced the entire tavern. No one dared to speak up. They feared falling victim to her stealth. From the corner, the man in the cloak spoke again. Ha! A bunch of cowards calling yourselves adventurers. Go home and drink your milk. Oh, you are the wandering hero. Cecil recognized the man at this moment. He was also a diamond-ranked adventurer. He wandered the world, his real name unknown to anyone. The wandering hero looked surprised. I didn't expect a noble like Lord Cecil to know the title of a street rat like me. I'm truly honored. You're too modest? So, we have 3 diamond adventurer teams here, and those cold-blooded mercenaries with Lucy Lena as well. Cecil pondered. A diamond-level adventurer team didn't mean every member was diamond-ranked. Usually, only one member was. For instance, the Wandering Hero, Cecil of the Blizzard Heroes, and Gru the Grey Hat. These 3 were the diamond-ranked ones, while their team members were mostly platinum or even gold rank. It's said that people would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. But there were also teams where everyone was diamond-ranked, though they were very rare. The Wandering Hero spoke again. Don't look at me like that. I have no intention of tussling with you, and I'm even less interested in goblins. Those creatures are disgusting. Then why did you come here? Cecil asked. Puzzled. Brighttown was quite a remote place in the Lionheart Empire, and it took considerable time to get here. The Wandering Hero chuckled lightly. Would you believe me if I said I just happened to wander into this place? Everyone rolled their eyes at him. What did the word adventure mean? It meant going on adventures, challenging dangers. How could it be just a coincidence? Just kidding. I'm not interested in goblins. But that Dragon Island, now that I'm very interested in... If I could slay an ancient dragon, I might become an epic hero, right? The Wandering Hero spoke with great anticipation. Dealing with goblins, such low-level matters, couldn't compare to dragon slaying. That's why he had come here. Besides, many weren't here for the goblins. They were here for the dragons. The Wandering Hero continued. By the way, a reminder. Although goblins are a low-level race, don't be deceived by their simplicity. While many goblins are low-level monsters, they can evolve. They have no reproductive isolation and can produce stronger offspring, especially evolved goblins. They are extremely terrifying. Makes sense. I've lived nearly 100 years and have seen more goblins than you've seen women. Gru's previously arrogant voice now turned solemn. This race could be considered the most powerful in the world. They've existed since ancient times, always the enemy of all other races. Even after thousands of years of killing, they haven't been wiped out. Do you think goblins can be underestimated? If not for the imperial bounty of 300 gold coins, I wouldn't be getting involved in this mess. Cecil, always a humble person, grew more cautious after hearing this, thinking carefully. Even the sword saintess had been driven to despair and lost her fighting spirit. These goblins might indeed be unusual. Bet's Men's Summit. What's important for men in 2024? Do you bet? Come, they had analyzed it. Not just mindlessly, believing the sword saintess couldn't handle a group of goblins. Various factors were at play, like deaths in Brighttown, dragons, and several imperial knight regiments perishing, plus long-term guarding duties, among other things. This led to the current situation. Though her reputation was tarnished, it couldn't completely overshadow the sword saintess's brilliance. Alright then, Master Gru, let's join forces to deal with those goblins. You can keep the gold coins. I won't take any reward. Cecil finally decided. His original purpose wasn't for the bounty, but to eliminate the goblins on his family's orders, proving their superiority to Loder's family indirectly. This would show the Emperor that their family was far superior to the Stampmont family, but the situation had changed. To ensure success, it was better to team up with others. Gru's old eyes gleamed with a sly smile. Since Lord Cecil is so generous, I won't refuse. Let's join forces. Even against a goblin leader or a goblin overlord, we can handle it. Looks like those 300 gold coins aren't for us. No worries, let's just watch the show. Weren't we mainly here to see the sword saintess's disgrace? Mission accomplished. Some sighed, some lamented. They had hoped to try their luck and earn 300 gold coins, thinking it was just goblins. But with 2 diamond adventurers joining forces, there was no chance. Cecil, Gru, and the others quickly packed up and left the tavern, finding a spot on the street to discuss their battle plan. In my opinion, let's solve this with brute force. The sword saintess failed because she was held back and couldn't fight properly. Gru suggested. Cecil remained cautious. There are too many unknowns. We should first find their location, observe, and then make specific plan. You young people are too cautious. It's so troublesome. Leave those tasks to you then. Gru grumbled. Cecil didn't refuse. That works. Wait. He looked toward the entrance of Brighttown. A mysterious figure clad entirely in rusty armor approached, covered so thoroughly that not even a finger or patch of skin was visible. It was the type of heavy armor that offered extremely high defense. For an ordinary person, walking a few steps in, it would be strenuous. This person also carried a greatsword on their back. Yes, a greatsword. A weapon half a meter wide and 1.5 meters long. My goodness, that guy is truly bizarre. Cecil couldn't help but remark. Estimating the newcomer's strength, he thought of recruiting him. Hey, sir, would you like to join us for a chat? Hearing someone call out, the heavily armored figure slowly walked over. What's the matter? The voice that came from the figure was deep and commanding, likely altered with a voice changer. This only piqued Cecil's curiosity more. How should we address you? Why are you dressed in such heavy armor? Even disguising your voice. That's my personal business. If that's all, I won't be staying. The mysterious figure in heavy armor turned to leave. At this moment, Gru spoke up. Didn't expect Goblin Slayer to come here. Or rather, of course, Goblin Slayer would come. Why don't we have a chat? Chapter 35. Chapter 35 and Chapter 36. Chapter 35. The Mysterious Goblin Slayer. Chapter 36. Perverse Goblin Virtue. 2 chapters into 1, the heavily armored mysterious man was none other than the infamous Goblin Slayer. He wasn't an adventurer and didn't belong to any faction. He simply enjoyed slaughtering goblins. If he had to be assigned a rank, it would be around the epic level. As stories about him circulated widely throughout the Empire, Cecil felt awkward for a moment. Truly rude of me. I apologize for not recognizing you. I never hoped for too many people to know me. Being able to quietly slaughter goblins is enough. Goblin Slayer said indifferently. Old Gru took the opportunity to mock. Lord Cecil, haven't you even heard of Goblin Slayer? He's someone who has killed goblin leaders. You know. By the way, they say in one battle you killed thousands of goblins. Is it true? Your combat prowess almost rivals the sword saintess. Thousands? Upon hearing this, Cecil's face was full of astonishment. That's way too many. And there were goblin leaders among them. Goblin Slayer started to get a bit impatient. True or not, it doesn't matter. Even if I killed tens of thousands, there are still endless goblins to kill. Seeing his impatience, Gru quickly explained their intention. We plan to join forces to wipe out that group of goblins. How about cooperating with us? Lord Goblin Slayer. Yes. Even the sword saintess fell to the goblins. It's better to cooperate. Hearing how powerful he was, Cecil eagerly wanted to recruit him. Cooperate. I have done that with people before, but every time they got killed by goblins. I think I'll pass. Goblin Slayer politely declined. Cecil felt troubled. This guy was too arrogant, right? He even emphasized that the sword saintess fell. Was he really that confident? Gru wanted to say more, but Goblin Slayer interrupted again. You need to join forces? But I don't. Do you want to know why? Gru suddenly crushed the cookie in his hand, his old face twitching. Aren't you being too arrogant? If you get caught by goblins and have your limbs chopped off and cooked, don't cry for help. He couldn't hold back anymore. Previously, if anyone dared to speak like this, he would have blasted them with a powerful spell. Cecil, sensing the complexity of the situation, quickly tried to calm things down. Forget it. It's fine if we don't cooperate. I just hope you won't come begging me for help then. Goblin Slayer left without looking back, leaving the two behind, one bewildered and the other angry. Sissel couldn't help but smile bitterly. What a strange person. Just a pure waste. So he killed a few goblins, who gave him such a big face. Someone might think he cleared out some high-tier monsters, maybe even cleaned up the Great Tomb. Gru muttered angrily. The Great Tomb was the largest monster gathering place in the Lionheart Empire. Rumored to have a 12th tier demon king, it had always been a tough challenge. Even the Sword Saintess avoided it. Then Gru stood up abruptly. Let's go. What are you still dawdling for? Quickly clean up those trash. I don't want to stay in this damn place for another moment. Now. Are you sure we shouldn't prepare more? Cecil felt a bit wary, knowing even the Sword Saintess suffered a loss. Gru snorted coldly. Prepare for what? Just goblins. Can't we handle them together? If we don't act now, that guy will steal the credit. That's true. With that, the two of them and their team set out. On a hillside far from the town, a large green head poked out. Those cold eyes became more and more unsettling the longer you looked at them. Lin Tian used the Elven Keen skill to observe the three from a distance, calculating in his mind, Goblin Slayer. I didn't expect such a character to exist. Someone who specifically hunts goblins? There are too many weirdos. Previously, Loader and his group of perverts enjoyed torturing the weak. Now there was someone who specialized in hunting goblins. What did goblins ever do to them? Oh wait, probably everything. Goblin Slayer. Elf 65. Race. Human. Profession. None. Title. Goblin Slayer. Goblin Charmer. Tyrant. Massacring Maniac. One who shouldn't exist. Health. 900. Strength. 260. Defense. 450. Skills. Heavy Strike. Father's Blood. Equipment. Rusty Iron Armor. Rusty Broadsword. Overall. 1000, 3000. Hiss. Looking at Goblin Slayer's stats panel, Lin Tian didn't know what to say. How did the stats range from 1000 to 3000? Was this a joke? System. Are you kidding me? Or did something go wrong? Lin Tian quickly asked. However, the system gave an annoyingly official response. Sorry, host. There is no issue here. He couldn't think of any more questions to ask. So be it. He decided to check the attribute panels of the other two. Cecil, with an overall combat power of only 1300, held the profession of Holy Knight and possessed skills that restrain monsters. Gru, with a slightly higher combat power of 1400, was a great mage with a multitude of skills, making him quite difficult to deal with. Watching them leave Brighttown, Lin Tian also mounted Little Juan and set off ahead. These two diamond level guys seem pretty dumb. They shouldn't be a big problem. But that Goblin Slayer, I need to think more about him. Riding on horseback, Cecil and his team soon arrived at the vicinity of the former Tian Quang tribe's site. There was nothing left. It had been specially cleaned up to blend in with the surrounding environment. This created a misleading effect. It made those who came looking for trouble think that the tribe hadn't moved but simply couldn't be found. Hiss. Such a big goblin tribe should have been discovered by now. This enchanted forest area isn't that big. Old Gru spoke in confusion, feeling that something was off. Cecil also said, there are many traces of battles along the way. Although they are from a long time ago, they prove that the tribe was around here. The two teams searched for a long time and finally found something. Old man, look at this. At this moment, Cecil picked up a strand of golden hair. Gru stared at it for a long time, sniffed it, and examined it closely. If I'm not mistaken, this is elf hair. Elf. That neutral demi-human race? No way. Cecil was somewhat astonished, suddenly understanding something. He quickly said, could it be that the elves helped the goblins hide? That can't be. Goblins were a race everyone wanted to eliminate on sight. If this were true, there must be a high-level intelligent species among them. It doesn't seem like hiding. I've scouted this area and found no caves. The elves probably helped them move and hide their tracks well, Gru said solemnly. Starting to think, elves were well known for their excellent concealment and stealth skills. Finally, Gru said, go find a flower butterfly. These butterflies love the scent of elves. After busying themselves for a while, they finally brought back a brightly colored butterfly. Once at the spot, Cecil opened the bottle and released it. The butterfly seemed to have a purpose and began flying in a specific direction. Follow it, Gru instructed. The group walked, marking their path as they went. Eventually, they followed it to the riverbank. Damn, they might have crossed the river. The butterfly has lost the scent. Gru cursed inwardly, scanning the surroundings. Without the butterfly's guidance, they were like headless flies. Cecil sighed. It's been almost a day, and we haven't even found a trace. Let's wait for Goblin Slayer to find them, and we'll act first. They couldn't find them, but Goblin Slayer might have a way. Gru, however, didn't want to work with that guy, even if it meant taking advantage. It's unnecessary. Look at the edge of the forest across the river. They saw a big goblin wandering at the forest's edge. Upon seeing Cecil and his group, it turned and ran into the forest. Chase it. Upon seeing the goblin, Cecil and his companions immediately tensed up. They waded through the river without hesitation, pursuing into the forest on the other side. On the other side, Lin Tian's lips curled into a smile. Very good. The prey has taken the bait. Though it seems to be aiming to be the oriole after the cicada, in the dense forest behind, a mysterious figure in heavy armor approached slowly. The figure reached the riverbank. Upon seeing who it was, Lin Tian frowned slightly. In his plan, he intended to deal with those two idiots first, but he didn't expect Goblin Slayer to follow as well. At this moment, Goblin Slayer emitted strange noises from his mouth. It sounded like he was very pleased, extremely excited and thrilled. Great! Wonderful. So beautiful. Under that armor, his eyes were glowing. This confused Lin Tian. Is this guy having a mental orgasm? What's he laughing at? Goblin Slayer then untied the weapon on his back and slowly removed that mysterious helmet with his hand. The revealed appearance wasn't that of a bearded man or a scar-faced brute. Instead, it was a striking woman with jade-like fair skin and slightly curly long hair. Her deep green eyes were like a lush, enchanting forest. Her red lips and white teeth were just like an angel from a medieval painting. However, upon closer inspection, one could notice her ears were slightly pointed. Lin Tian thought his eyes were deceiving him. No way, a woman. Wearing such heavy armor just to conceal her gender. And what's with those ears? Immediately after, Goblin Slayer started removing her leg armor. Those legs were so beautiful they took one's breath away. Too white and long, with clearly defined muscle lines, probably developed from years of wearing heavy armor. They were as exceptionally beautiful as ancient Roman sculptures. Bang! When the heavy chest armor hit the ground, what came into view was a bra bound with circles of white bandages, exposing her graceful collarbones and navel. Bandages. This hits my king too hard. Can't imagine how fragrant this person must be. I must capture her and make her my exclusive breeding tool. Lin Tian swallowed, tempted to act immediately to subdue her. But in the end, reason triumphed over desire. Her strength was unknown, and he didn't dare to act rashly. Better to deal with those two idiots ahead first. He even suspected she had discovered him and was deliberately trying to lure him out. At this moment, Goblin Slayer had shed all her clothes, like a fallen angel bathing in the river. She started washing every part of her body in the clear river water. She was like a scorching pure white lotus, making one's blood boil. Lin Tian had never felt this way before, as if he were mesmerized by her. After watching for a while, he finally chose to leave. As the fight ahead was about to start, what kind of intelligent variant is this? I really want to have a good taste. In the river, Goblin Slayer muttered to herself expectantly. Her eyes were full of longing. Her expression excited and hard to contain. Her face had turned red. That big goblin was still running wildly, only stopping after covering several dozen miles in one go, collapsing from exhaustion. He ran so far to create a misleading impression, making everyone think the tribe was in the forest several dozen miles across the river. Damn it! Is that guy a dog? Running so fast and so far. Gru couldn't help cursing. Even the carnivorous horses couldn't catch up. Fortunately, the carnivorous horses had far more endurance than goblins. Cecil's nerves tightened. He stopped. Everyone, be careful. The goblin tribe must be nearby. Hearing this, everyone became vigilant. Suddenly, the sound of something cutting through the air rang out. Whoosh. An arrow flew from an unknown direction, hitting the horse under Gru, causing it to struggle frantically, throwing him off in the process. Gru got up and wielded his red crystal magic staff, launching an attack towards the dense forest ahead. Boom! A violent explosion occurred, accompanied by blazing flames. Boom! 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 One after another, wild blasts shattered most of the surrounding trees. Opening up the view, Cecil quickly shouted, "Careful! Goblins are attacking!" Gobu Kwang stood up from behind the bushes, holding a black iron sword and a large battle axe, which were the weapons of Kasimov and the Battle Roar captain. Seeing this, Gru fired a fierce attack at him. Die. Flames instantly engulfed Gobu Kwang's massive form. That guy is likely a hero variant. Focus fire. Gru continued shouting. The Grey Hat members all used fireball magic, bombarding Gobu Kwang ferociously. If it were a human, not even ashes would remain. Cecil felt a bit embarrassed watching. That's enough. Old man Gru. That guy has long been reduced to ashes. However, when the flames dissipated, Gobu Kwang stood there unscathed. His four hands were raised in front of him, and combined with the blocking battle axe, he was almost unharmed. Only the skin on his four hands had peeled back, looking quite painful. Instantly, Gru's heart trembled. What? He isn't dead. It seems he is indeed a hero variant. Keep attacking. From a distance, on a large rock, Goblin Slayer stood straight, observing everything ahead. She couldn't help but sneer. They don't even know that four-handed goblins have magic resistance. They'll probably all meet their end here. Look around. Goblins are approaching, and they're all big variants. At this moment, Cecil exclaimed. A group of heavily armed big goblins was rapidly approaching, at least dozens of them. Gru then realized they were surrounded. Damn it! Why do these goblins have iron armor and iron swords? We must not let them get close. Cecil, it's up to you now. High-level magic. Life spring. Immediately, he activated his skill, creating a spring emitting blue light at everyone's feet. In this area, they could continuously recover their strength. It was equivalent to sustained mana regeneration, allowing for continuous spell casting. Cecil and his team guarded the group of Grey Hat mages. Mid-tier magic, Ice Spike. Mid-tier magic, Quicksand Field. Mid-tier magic, Rain of Retribution. For a moment, all sorts of dazzling magical attacks appeared. There was ice, water, sand, fire, and so on. They truly managed to suppress the group of big goblins, preventing them from approaching. However, only 3 had died so far, because it was a wheel battle. 100 or 200 fully armed big goblins took turns surrounding and approaching. The injured ones would retreat behind the big rocks for treatment by Ephraia. Once healed, they would continue fighting. But this was not a sustainable method. Lin Tian instructed. Gobu Tian, Try to create an opportunity for Gobu Kwang to charge in. Yes, boss. From the top of a large tree, Gobu Tian descended directly from the sky. Kekeke. He jumped onto Gru's head, who was casting Life Spring. He continuously tore at Gru's face with his claws, making it a bloody mess in an instant. Gru screamed in pain and quickly interrupted his spell. High-level shield. Bang! A shockwave erupted from him, forming a blue shield that blasted Gobu Tian away, but it also created an opportunity for Gobu Kwang and his companion, Mindless Charge. Gobu Kwang roared, constantly swinging the weapons in his hands. Cecil and his group were so frightened they visibly took half a step back, shouting, "Don't be afraid. Shield bearers. Where are the shield bearers?" Two knights pulled out large silver shields from their backs. Clang! A harsh sound of metal collision rang out, actually blocking Gobu Kwang. But it only blocked Gobu Kwang. Everyone else was instantly overwhelmed by a large number of goblins. Screams echoed. Seeing the dire situation, Cecil placed his longsword before him and began chanting, "Holy Lord, I shall use your power to drive out the demons. Super level magic, holy light enchantment." Swish! The ordinary longsword was instantly covered in a golden holy light. It now looked like a 2-meter-long golden greatsword. "Your Highness, save me." A knight was pinned down by a goblin, who was frantically tearing at his armor. Seeing the exposed flesh, the goblin bit into his arm. A large chunk of flesh was bitten off just like that. The big goblin was still chewing when suddenly, the holy light-covered longsword pierced through it. The goblin lost all reaction. Cecil commanded, "Everyone, gather around me. Don't scatter." Old man Gru, "How long until your attack magic is ready?" "Almost there. I just got ambushed." "Why didn't you pay more attention?" Gru could no longer worry about attack magic. First casting healing magic to heal the wounds on his face, any later and it would have been too late. Cecil's blizzard heroes finally reacted. They began using the blizzard formation. 7 people formed a hexagonal snowflake shape. In the center was another healing type paladin in the team, responsible for restoring everyone's strength, and Gru and the other mages who were recuperating. Cecil, holding the holy light sword, stood alone against the side with the most goblins, forcing the goblins to stay away. "Oh, a paladin. Quite unexpected." From a distance, Goblin Slayer spoke in surprise, but then her tone shifted. "Unfortunately, they underestimate goblins, such a beautiful and powerful species." Gru couldn't help but be satisfied. "Indeed, I chose the right team to join forces with. I'm ready too. Let's kill them all." He then reactivated the Life Spring. The Grey Hat members were ready to continue their unlimited firepower. Seeing this situation, Linton couldn't help but sigh. Indeed, a diamond-level adventurer team. Their level is much higher than expected. Qualified output. Qualified defense. If it were any other goblin tribe, even with 10 hero variants, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. What a pity they came to the wrong place. Gobushan. What are you waiting for? As soon as Lin Tian finished speaking, a goblin covered in bone spikes and armor stepped forward. "Boss, then I won't hold back." "Kekek. What is that thing?" "A goblin." Seeing Gobushan, Cecil and his team were shocked. It was their first time seeing such a strange creature, covered in bone spikes and bone armor. Gru sensed something was wrong. His pupils constricted as he realized, damn it, it's a mutant variant. Focus fire on that mutant goblin. Chapter 36, Chapter 37, and Chapter 38. Chapter 37. Instant kill. Goblin Slayer's strength. Chapter 38. I am the Goblin King. Hearing this, everyone began preparing to launch an attack. At that moment, the ground started to shake continuously, as if something was about to emerge from below. The next second, swish. 3 sharp bone spikes suddenly burst out around Gru. It was like a barbecue skewer. 3 Grey Hat mages were immediately skewered. "Help. Help me." My ass got pierced. After a few seconds of agonizing scream, the 3 lost their breath. Gobushan relished their screams and twisted expressions, taking a deep breath. "What a wonderful voice. Boss, can I have more?" "Damn pervert. Do whatever you want." Lin Tian felt a wave of disgust. He knew this guy was twisted, but not to this extent. He finally understood. "Look at those chrysanthemums blooming all over the mountain." Seeing this, Cecil raised the holy light sword and charged first, slashing at Gobushan, facing an attack that had a restraining effect on monsters. Gobushan did not even attempt to dodge. He blocked it with a swipe of his bone tail. His left hand transformed into a long bone spike and thrust towards Cecil. This guy is hard to deal with. Cecil quickly retreated, falling back into the blizzard formation. The holy light couldn't cause restraining damage to pure bones. It was too difficult to fight head on. At this moment, Gobu Kwang led a large batch of goblins in a fierce attack. The magicians, terrified by the sight of the 3 corpses, didn't know what to do. They were too scared to attack, thinking only of using defensive magic to protect their fragile chrysanthemums. "What are you standing there for? A bunch of idiots?" Gru cursed angrily, preparing to use magic to repel the goblins. But then he felt a chill below. He quickly stepped back. Swish. Another bone spike shot up. Gru panted heavily in fear. "That was close. Almost lost my chrysanthemum. Shame." "Boss, should we go all out now?" Gobushan asked. Seeing their formation already disrupted, Lin Tian said, "It's about time. Finish them off." Roar! Gobu Kwang lifted the silver shield of a shield bearer and swung his massive axe wildly. With one strike, the shield knight's armor cracked. The second strike left him dizzy. By the third strike, he was split in half. Over 100 big goblins joined the attack, facing this frenzied assault. Cecil couldn't care less about anything else. "Run! Retreat. I think we've fallen into a trap. Why are there so many big goblins? So many. Logically, a goblin tribe should mostly consist of low-level small goblins. Those were easy to kill. But now, they faced over 100 fully armed big goblins. There were even hero variants and mutant variants. As Cecil and the others tried to mount their horses to escape, a volley of arrows whizzed through the air. Whoosh! 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 A barrage of arrows scattered their carnivorous horses. There was no way to ride them. Cecil's legs trembled in fear. It's over. I should have expected the elves would use ambush tactic. Should have known. Then, he ignored the others and ran forward in a frenzy. Behind him, screams of agony filled the air. Cecil turned around and saw what seemed like the most tragic scene in the world. He was so scared he nearly cried. I have to escape. I have to escape. Dad, I surrender. Send the regular army. He saw 7 or 8 people skewered by Gobushan's bone spikes, avoiding fatal points, leaving them writhing in agony but unable to break free. They made pitiful squeals. Gobu Kwang, don't kill them yet. Let me play with them first. Gobushan laughed wickedly. Gobu Kwang shoved Gru onto a bone spike in front of him. Alright. No. Cecil, save me. Gru's tears and snot flowed freely from the pain, veins bulging on his forehead, his eyes nearly popping out. But Cecil had no intention of helping him. He noticed something moving quickly through the surrounding trees. Too fast. He was quickly overtaken. Help. Someone help me. Cecil finally burst into tears. After all, he was just a 19-year-old who had barely reached adulthood. With death closing in around him, he couldn't hold it together anymore. At that moment, he saw a figure, a full armor figure that brought a sense of safety. Goblin Slayer. Sir, please, save me. Cecil stretched out his hand and shouted, his face full of pleading. If possible, he wouldn't hesitate to kneel before her. Seeing their miserable state was within Goblin Slayer's expectations. Just a mutant variant. Well, it might be a bit interesting. Cecil used all his strength. Faster. He had to reach her side quickly, but disaster always struck faster than him. The goblin assassins from the bushes immediately acted, jumping on him and starting to stab and bite crazily. Fortunately, Cecil's armor was thick, so he wasn't injured, but his steps were slowed down. He stumbled, unable to walk properly. No matter what he did, he couldn't shake off the goblins. They clung to him like glue. His weapon was snatched first. This was Lin Tian's special training for the goblins, to steal weapons whenever possible. Suddenly, Cecil's vision went black. Gobutian leaped out and grabbed his face, his claws sharper than makeshift short sword. A few scratches destroyed the helmet. Gobutian opened his foul-smelling mouth full of sharp teeth, ready to bite down, as if having a buffet. Whoosh! At this moment, a dagger flew over, stabbing Gobutian in the back. In pain, he jumped away, twisting on the ground as if in extreme agony. Sensing something was wrong, he stumbled and ran towards Lin Tian. The other goblin assassins were also hit by daggers, all of them twisted on the ground in pain, as if they were trying to break their own bones. Finally, they let out a final scream and lost their breath. They died in twisted shapes. Cecil crawled to Goblin Slayer's feet, trembling. Thank you. I will repay you. Will you obey? Goblin Slayer asked calmly, picking up the daggers as she spoke. Cecil nodded frantically. Goblin Slayer then said, if you obey, then get as far away from me as possible. You ridiculous child? What are you going to do? Don't go. This isn't an ordinary goblin tribe. There's definitely a goblin overlord. This is the first time I've seen a tribe where only big variants are fighting. Don't go. Cecil almost shouted, wishing he could kneel and beg her. However, Goblin Slayer didn't care. Really? I was worried there wouldn't be a goblin overlord. The more, the better. That would satisfy me. Then she walked forward with relaxed, powerful steps. At this moment, Gobushan and his group were toying with the skewered Gru and others, facing their eyes, which looked at them like they were small barbecue skewers. They were about to collapse from fear. It was too cruel and terrifying. They wished someone would kill them quickly. The pain and torture were worse than death. Swish! Suddenly, a small dagger flew over. It stabbed into Gobu Kwang's body. He could ignore such an attack, casually pulling it out. What is this? While he was still puzzled, his eyes suddenly trembled. Intense pain shot from the wound to his head. His muscles bulged, and he started crashing around wildly, biting his teeth. He knocked over several big trees and then slammed into a boulder, passing out on the spot. What's going on? Gobu Kwang, are you crazy? Gobushan was shocked, and the other big goblins looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. Gru and the others noticed the figure in front of them, Goblin Slayer. They felt like they had seen their savior. They wanted to shout but didn't dare, fearing their chrysanthemums might burst. After all, science showed that when people shouted loudly, their anuses would vibrate with each word. For those with hemorrhoids, it would push out a bit. Lin Tian had noticed her arrival long ago but couldn't figure out what technique she used. Killing the goblin assassins was one thing, but now Gobu Kwang and Gobu Tian were down, uncertain if they were dead or alive. Gobushan saw her too, swinging his bone tail and stabbing fiercely. Goblin Slayer caught the tail with one hand, pulled out a huge broadsword with the other, and slashed down hard. The entire tail was chopped off, though Gobushan didn't feel any pain. He lost a weapon. Goblin Slayer, bored, tossed the bone tail aside, shouldering the rusty broadsword. Are you the leader of these goblins? She found it hard to believe. How could such a rabble of goblins defeat the Sword Saintess? It couldn't be their strength. Could it be intelligence? That seemed even less likely. Gobushan was furious. Kill her. With his command, all the big goblins charged. Goblin Slayer remained calm, spinning with her broadsword in a whirlwind. Several big goblins were severely injured or had limbs severed, not instantly killed. But the strange scene happened again. The injured goblins screamed and twisted madly. Soon, they stopped moving. In less than a minute, 30 to 40 big goblins had died. Continuing to attack was just suicide. Lin Tian watched from the sky, his expression grim. Damn it. What technique is she using? The system shows her skills are just basic attacks. No magic? Yet now, he had suffered an unprecedented loss in such a short time. The remaining big goblins were too scared to continue attacking. Clear the way. At this moment, Gobushan shouted loudly, so the goblins retreated one after another. In the distance, on the tree branches, graceful figures lurked, drawing their longbows. The sound of taut bowstrings echoed. Whoosh! Countless arrows shot towards Goblin Slayer. However, they were all blocked by the heavy iron armor. Lin Tian found it hard to believe. No wonder the armor is so heavy. It can ignore ranged attacks and even withstand magic. The arrows were ineffective, so the elves ceased their attack. Continuing to shoot would be a waste, and in a melee, they might accidentally injure the goblins. Come on, entertain me, Goblin Slayer said contemptuously, looking at Gobushan. It seemed she didn't regard the mutant variant at all. Seeing this situation, the people who were still barely hanging on felt a glimmer of hope. Gru hurriedly said, Your Excellency, can you let me down first? I beg you. I'm about to die. I have high-level recovery potions. With high-level recovery potions, there was still hope, but if he continued to be skewered, not even a god could save him. However, Goblin Slayer swung her broadsword. She directly beheaded him on the spot, cutting him in half along with the bone spike. Thunk. The others were frightened and tensed up. She actually killed someone. Whose side was this guy on? Quit your whining and just die already. To avoid more pain, Goblin Slayer said nonchalantly. Killing a person meant nothing to her. Unlike the legend that said she only killed goblins, she would kill anyone she didn't like, even humans. Gobushan's face began to twist grotesquely, and the bone spikes on his body mutated. The spikes on his back grew longer, the chest armor thicker, and his tusks protruded almost covering his eyes. The nails on his hands turned into long, sharp spikes, with bone spikes around his wrist guards, providing even more protection. Bone horns also sprouted from his forehead. Blood red energy spilled from his eyes. Berserk transformation. A mad bull. Goblin Slayer said calmly. Gobushan, like a crazed bull, lunged forward. The bloodlight from his claws almost seemed to carve the space itself. Bang! Immediately, Goblin Slayer swung her broadsword, forcibly knocking Gobushan away. He slammed into a boulder, cracking it. In the next second, Gobushan had already charged back. His bone claws scraped the heavy armor, producing an ear-piercing Z sound. After a long bout, they only left 5mm deep claw marks. It couldn't penetrate directly. Lin Tian observed from afar, realizing that using the elemental hand crossbow would be useless. Wind, water, fire, poison, all couldn't penetrate. The armor was too thick and heavy. Even wind elements couldn't create an impact. Perhaps lightning elements could work, but it was autumn, and he hadn't heard a single thunderclap in a month. Facing the berserk Gobushan, Goblin Slayer didn't want to play for too long, so she simply grabbed his bone horns and broke them off. She then thrust them into Gobushan's eyes. The intense pain made him turn to flee. Ads by Pub Future. But he was grabbed by the tail again. Die. Goblin Slayer raised her broadsword high, ready to chop Gobushan to death. Seeing this, the other goblins rushed up. But it was too late. Without Gobu Kwang's violent output and Gobutian's sneak attacks, the other big goblins were at most super soldiers. Crack. She cut off all the bone spikes on Gobushan's back and shoulders. However, the broadsword only embedded partway into his shoulder and didn't go all the way through. Without the bone frame's protection, he would have been cut in half long ago. Lin Tian didn't just stand idly by. He gathered a large amount of earth elements and fired charged attacks. The sticky clumps of earth directly stuck to Goblin Slayer's feet and body, making it difficult for her to move. In this situation, Lin Tian pondered. Should we retreat? But this guy has many mysteries, and is an excellent breeding tool. The mystery was why her dagger could temporarily incapacitate Gobu Kwang and Gobu Tian. Low-level goblins died immediately. And those ears? After much deliberation, Lin Tian decided to change his attack strategy. If melee, ranged, and ambushes didn't work, then use attrition warfare. At this time, Lin Tian appeared riding a wyvern, and commanded, everyone back up. Form a circle. Advance when she retreats. Retreat when she advances. Throw stones if you have them. Use ranged attacks if you can. Hearing this, Goblin Slayer was slightly surprised and looked up. A wyvern riding goblin. I knew this place wouldn't disappoint me. Lin Tian continued to use earth elements to restrain her. The other goblins started to harass her. Large stones were continuously thrown at Goblin Slayer, making her stagger as she struggled to stay upright. Goblin Slayer mocked, "Is this all you can do? Don't let me down. It's not over yet. Cut down the trees." At Lin Tian's command, the other goblins began chopping down trees over 10 meters long. A few goblins lifted the trees and repeatedly rammed them against Goblin Slayer. Although the effect was minimal, constantly wearing her down would soon exhaust her. This lasted for over an hour. The goblins kept sweeping and ramming with the tree, bombarding her with large stones, and using earth elements to weigh her down and slow her movement. Finally, Goblin Slayer began to pant heavily from exhaustion, but the surrounding goblins were also almost too tired to continue and needed a break. Lin Tian proudly said, "I wonder how long you can keep this up. Underestimating the goblins will be your death." At this moment, Goblin Slayer lifted the visor of her helmet. He was puzzled. Not knowing what she intended to do, Goblin Slayer picked up Gru's corpse, cut off pieces of flesh, and stuffed them into her mouth. After chewing a few pieces, she stuck out her rosy tongue to lick off the remaining blood and meat. She then put the visor back down. While the goblins were resting, she suddenly seemed revitalized, launching a surprise attack. Goblin Slayer coldly said, "Resting. How can it compare to directly replenishing him energy?" In a flash, she was among the goblins, swinging her broadsword and killing one with each strike. Some were directly cut down, while others died from the mysterious power that caused them excruciating pain. The goblins, who had the upper hand just moments ago, were now fleeing in all directions. Even Gobushan dared not approach. But from a distance, Goblin Slayer pulled out a small dagger from her waist and flung it at Gobushan, prepared for the attack. Gobushan watched it carefully. However, he had seen Gobu Kwang collapse after being stabbed just once. He hurriedly used his broken bone tail to block it. Swish. He blocked the first dagger but couldn't stop the second. Immediately, around the small dagger the size of a pinky, his veins bulged. The pain engulfed Gobushan, making him feel as if a force was devouring him from within. He rolled on the ground in agony. Ads by Pub Future. Even the bones on his body began to fall off one by one. Lin Tian thought to himself that he had underestimated this Goblin Slayer. Damn. What kind of person is this? She can recover by eating flesh? Isn't that a goblin ability? Given the situation, it was better to retreat now. Gobu Kwang and Gobushan could die if necessary. After all, he already had hundreds of breeding tools and a secret cave. He could quickly produce more goblins. To me, they are just expendable. As Lin Tian prepared to take Freya and leave, Goblin Slayer spoke. "I can spare their lives if you let me see you. I want to see what kind of goblin can be so powerful. It's been a long time. 7 years. No, 10 years since I've seen such a clever and strong goblin. Tactics, behind-the-scenes control, dragon riding, controlling elves, and cultivating so many high-level variants, such an existence was exceptional among goblins. In some ways, even the Goblin King had not achieved this." Lin Tian sneered. "Spare me that nonsense. Do you think I'll believe you?" Hearing this, Goblin Slayer threw away her broadsword. Clang. She wasn't done yet. She began removing her armor. She took off her helmet, revealing her fluffy, slightly curly golden hair and beautiful face. She asked, "Is this enough?" Seeing her revealed, the goblins watching from afar were stunned. She was incredibly beautiful, the kind that stirred one's desires. But in front of them was a rose with thorns. Thinking was one thing, but no one dared to approach. Even those skewered individuals, and Cecil, were dumbfounded. A woman. Goblin Slayer is actually a woman. Seeing this, Lin Tian was completely bewildered. What was this woman up to? She had discarded her sword and helmet. Now Lin Tian was confident he could subdue her, using poison elements to accurately hit her head. However, she mentioned sparing Gobushan and others, which meant there was still hope. He signaled Xiao Huan to slowly land. Preparing to negotiate with her, Goblin Slayer's breath became rapid and heated. Her beautiful face flushed. She looked as if she was on the verge of a climax. Huff! Huff! What kind of goblin are you? Finally, Lin Tian dismounted from the dragon, standing about 10 meters away from her. What? Seeing Lin Tian's appearance, Goblin Slayer's expression changed instantly. From ecstatic and excited to shocked and confused. Impossible. How can you be a low-level goblin? As you wished, satisfied. Now save the one over there, and the other goblins too, Lin Tian said coldly. But Goblin Slayer tilted her head, looking puzzled, unable to accept this. How can this be? Impossible. Impossible. She looked quite cute like this. But there was no time to waste. Gobushan was convulsing and foaming at the mouth. Are you playing with me? Lin Tian's eyes were filled with murderous intent, ready to act immediately. Reluctantly, Goblin Slayer took out a small bottle containing bright red liquid. She walked over to Gobushan and dripped a drop into his mouth. Soon, he calmed down, just lying on the ground, gasping for breath, unable to move. She then went to Gobu Kwang and Gobu Tian, giving each a drop of the liquid. Lin Tian frowned, asking suspiciously, "Are you a witch? What kind of disgusting sorcery is this?" It seemed like she was using witchcraft. Witchcraft. Who uses that stuff? I am the Goblin King? Goblin Slayer stopped and looked at Lin Tian with determination, saying each word clearly. Chapter 37, Chapter 39, and Chapter 40. Chapter 39, Goblin Slayer's true identity. Chapter 40, The Path. Goblin King. Hearing these words, Lin Tian almost felt his brain shrink. The woman in front of him was the Goblin King. What nonsense. Seeing his exaggerated reaction, Goblin Slayer smiled lightly. Just teasing you. Do you want to know my true identity? Follow me to the grove for a more intimate conversation, and I'll tell you. Lin Tian's intuition told him that this woman was terrifying and definitely not someone to mess with. Going into the grove, he estimated that she might eat him alive. After all, she had just eaten a person. I know what you're afraid of. Yes, I am the Goblin Slayer. I love hunting powerful goblins and mating with them. After mating, I kill them. It's been almost 10 years, and I haven't met a goblin worthy of me. But you have that qualification. Goblin Slayer spoke seriously. her eyes again revealing a surging desire. She was like a succubus. Lin Tian swallowed hard, but this woman's identity was too complicated and unknown. Mating was fine, but he had to poison her first. Goblin Slayer continued. Although you are in the form of a low-level goblin, you possess wisdom comparable to a goblin king? It really excites me. Please, agree to this. Give yourself to me. Let me possess you. As she spoke, she began to move towards Lin Tian. Damn. Is she crazy or doing this on purpose? Lin Tian was so frightened that he kept retreating. He didn't want to get touched by this thorny rose. What kind of woman would act like this? And she was such a beautiful woman. Lin Tian didn't even need a mirror to know that no woman would like a hideous pig like him. Goblin Slayer's longing and pleading eyes stared at him intently. She added, I promise I won't kill you after mating. I'll stay with you. I want to see what kind of being you will become. Come on. My dear. As she spoke, she began to chase Lin Tian. The remaining big goblins around hesitated, wanting to help but deeply fearing this woman. It's so embarrassing, being liked by such a beautiful woman but not daring to make a move. Lin Tian was almost in tears. He and the goblins circled around the small flying dragon, dodging like Chin chasing the king. Give me, let me possess every inch of you. Goblin Slayer shouted excitedly from behind. Her eyes had turned into heart shapes. From a distance, Leah and the others approached. Confused? Boss, what's going on? What are you standing there for? Help me. This woman is crazy. Lin Tian hurriedly called for help. Seeing the situation, Leah felt a bit awkward. But boss, you don't seem to be in any danger. Isn't mating with other species what you love? Just try it. At this time, Gobushan and Gobukwang had already woken up. Seeing that calling Leah was useless, Lin Tian shouted, You guys, quickly stop this human for me. Boss, don't harm my master. Come at me if you have to. Gobukwang woke up, shook his head vigorously, and rushed over as soon as he saw the situation. Hearing this, Lin Tian felt a bit displeased. Even if he had to die, he couldn't let this big fool have it easy. However, Gobukwang, who had rushed up, suddenly froze. He stood there mechanically, not moving. Even Gobushan and Gobutian, who had gotten up, did the same. Lin Tian sensed something was wrong. Very wrong. What are you idiots standing there for? Are you all brainless? Don't bother. They're under my control now. Goblin Slayer even let out a villainous laugh. Lin Tian was on the verge of tears. He understood now. He had become the victim? Right. Not long after. He was exhausted. Goblin Slayer caught him and hugged him tightly. Ads by Pub Future. Damn it. You crazy woman. What do you want? Lin Tian struggled hard, but he feared she would use the same method she had on Gobushan and the others. He couldn't withstand that. He didn't dare to really fight back, but looking at the loving hearts in her beautiful green eyes and feeling her hot breath, he felt she truly had no ill intentions. No, it should be full of ill intentions. But this ill intention didn't feel malicious to Lin Tian. Who would think a beautiful woman wanting to ravish you was malicious? Got you? My adorable little thing? Goblin Slayer hugged Lin Tian and dragged him into the grove, in front of him. She began to remove her armor. She revealed her white body wrapped in mysterious white bandages. Lin Tian's own desires began to burn, but he still asked, Are you serious? Beautiful. For the first time, he hesitated in front of a beautiful woman. Goblin Slayer didn't say a word and entwined herself with Lin Tian. Outside the bushes, Leah and the others, including Cecil and the barely alive adventurers, were dumbfounded, listening to the rhythmic, soft moans. They had been fighting fiercely, but how did it turn into this? Their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Even their upper jaws were about to fall off. No way. Why would Goblin Slayer do this? And she's such a beautiful woman too? Cecil held his head from a distance, completely unable to understand, having lived in the capital for so long. What beautiful women hadn't he seen? None compared to this Goblin Slayer? This development seemed completely abnormal. More like a beast. No, more like a goblin. Desire above all else? In the bushes, Lin Tian couldn't help but reveal a satisfied and smug smile. No matter how strong you are, if you're under my control, you'll just become an obedient puppet. But as time went on, he realized something was wrong. It seemed like the one being controlled was Lin Tian himself, not Goblin Slayer. Logically, the other party should become weak, with muddled consciousness, obeying his every command and cooperating with all actions. But now, Lin Tian was the one in that state. Outside the bushes, everyone waited nervously. After about an hour, finally, there was a rustling sound from the bushes, and someone came out. It was Goblin Slayer, fully dressed in her armor, her face flushed and radiant. She was satisfied as she picked up her helmet and sword. Seeing this, Leah and the others leaped to the bushes, only to find Lin Tian lying helplessly on the ground. Around him was a mess of unspeakable sticky substances. Boss, what happened to you? It's the first time I've seen you down like this, Leah said in surprise, quickly helping Lin Tian up. Faced with her question, Lin Tian was too embarrassed to say, Just a mistake. Keep an eye on that guy. I have a lot to ask her. How could he possibly admit what had happened? He felt he had been raped. He was the victim. He was the one being controlled. What the hell was going on? Obviously, he had sex with a beautiful woman who hit his sweet spot. But the result was utter humiliation. At this moment, Goblin Slayer stood there without any intention of leaving. Seeing Lin Tian come out, she smiled. Hello, my dear. You... Lin Tian's face twitched a few times. Ads by Pub Future. Then he said, "Let's go, and catch that guy who escaped earlier." Shush, shush, shush. Several goblins rushed out and directly subdued Cecil. Gobushan also returned to normal, leading the group back to the cave with large skewers of meat. This battle had significant losses, all because of that crazy pervert. 50 big goblins died. Fortunately, the hero variants didn't die. Upon arriving outside the cave, Goblin Slayer still had no intention of leaving. Impatiently, Lin Tian asked, "What do you want?" "This is a goblin lair. If you come in, you do so at your own risk. I said I would accompany you as you grow. As for the consequences, as long as you can bear them, it's fine." Goblin Slayer spoke, tracing her finger over Lin Tian's chest. Leah and the others glanced over, quickly turning their heads to avoid laughing. It was the first time they saw Lin Tian so embarrassed. Annoyed, Lin Tian said, "What are you looking at? Go inside and hide. Don't expose our location." Soon, only he and Goblin Slayer were left at the cave entrance. In this situation, Lin Tian knew the cave couldn't be hidden anymore. She probably already knew about it. Coldly, he asked, "Who are you really? What is that strange power? Why can you control my subordinates? And why did you just now control me?" He hesitated on the last sentence. If there were people around, he wouldn't have dared to say it. Goblin Slayer was silent for a moment, then said, "If I tell you everything, will you agree to let me follow you?" "Tell me first," Lin Tian said impatiently. If she wasn't valuable, he would have already fallen out with her. Goblin Slayer thought for a moment, then said, "My identity. It's a long story. My mother was human and was captured by goblins, a particularly powerful goblin tribe. You can guess the result. She got pregnant and gave birth to me." Hearing this, Lin Tian widened his eyes in disbelief. "You are a goblin's offspring. But why do you look so human?" "That's the unexpected part. I am the result of the Goblin King's seed who violated my mother." Goblin Slayer's expression turned solemn. This was a sensitive topic for her. Hearing this, Lin Tian found it hard to believe. It was too outrageous to accept. The offspring of the Goblin King. What a joke, as a goblin for so long. He knew best. The higher the tier of the goblin, the lower the chances of producing offspring. Mutant variants could hardly produce offspring, not to mention the top-tier Goblin King. The probability was lower than winning the lottery. Goblin Slayer said heavily, "I know you don't believe it. Even I can't believe I'm alive. But I personally killed the Goblin King. 10 years ago, I was almost forced by the Goblin King. When he relaxed, I killed him with my own hands." Goblin Slayer spoke, her tone turning sinister and terrifying. Like a goblin, she killed the Goblin King. Though surprised, Lin Tian had roughly guessed that goblins had no ethical boundaries, and she could resist goblins' special abilities, not losing action capability during mating. BTW. Goblin King is a class of goblins. There can be many Goblin Kings. I devoured the Goblin King and gained the power to control goblins. It was easy to slaughter that goblin dungeon. Goblin Slayer spoke with madness in her eyes. It was unsettling. Lin Tian never imagined this person's identity would be so complex. No wonder she was so powerful. But he asked, "Then what about that mysterious power of yours? How do you kill goblins so effortlessly? I can be considered one with royal blood. The goblin hierarchy is even stricter than humans. So, I mixed a bit of my body tissue into my weapon. When it enters other goblins, they experience an instinctive rejection. Simply put, it's a suicide mechanism etched into their genes to prevent any harm to the king and allows control over them." Goblin Slayer explained carefully. She possessed imperial blood, so she didn't have this suicide gene. With everything explained so clearly, Lin Tian considered accepting her. After all, she was essentially half goblin. No, she was practically a goblin in human skin. Assimilating into the group wouldn't be an issue. Lin Tian finally understood. No wonder you choose to wear such thick armor. It's to avoid being recognized by humans, right? But why do you call yourself Goblin Slayer? Logically, she was a goblin. Yet, she was obsessed with killing goblins. My mother was raped and killed by goblins. Of course, I want to slaughter goblins. As for choosing to mate with strong goblins and then eating them, that's a personal interest. Goblin Slayer continued. Forced by her biological father, she watched her mother being raped and killed. Indeed, it would twist one's personality. She had a human body but a goblin's heart. So, she chose to mate with goblins, equivalent to mating within her species, driven by instinct. This was why she had proactively thrown herself at Lin Tian. But she kept jumping back and forth between the two races. The goblin side didn't accept her, and humans couldn't possibly accept her either. Thus, a goblin in human skin was born. Killing goblins. She did human things by killing goblins, while also thinking about mating with goblins. This behavior aimed to fill the void in her heart. Lin Tian looked at her, feeling a bit pitiful. In that case, join me, seeing Lin Tian's serious expression. Goblin Slayer was stunned for a long time. She seemed unable to believe he would say such a thing. And from the heart, too, a goblin would accept Goblin Slayer. But she had killed the Goblin King and so many goblins. Aren't you afraid of me? Don't you think I'm the enemy of goblins? I killed your king. After all, Goblin Slayer asked tentatively. She initially intended to manipulate Lin Tian and toy with him. Now the situation had become very interesting. Lin Tian shrugged, looking indifferent. What does killing the Goblin King have to do with me? You killed many goblins before? That has nothing to do with me either. We have similar identities. But I have chosen a clear path. A clear path? Hearing this, Goblin Slayer stood there thinking, how interesting. A gift from the heavens. To encounter such a beautiful creation as you, Kehehe. Don't get cocky. Letting you join me doesn't mean I'll be dominated by you. I'm the one in control. Understand. Lin Tian's expression changed, speaking sternly. Really? Then shall we play some more? Just now, when I asked you to change position, you obediently did so, like a child being punished, Goblin Slayer said with an evil smile. Recalling this, Lin Tian felt ashamed and snorted coldly. Let's not bring that up. Throughout, Goblin Slayer was the one moving. Ads by Pub Future. After some teasing, Goblin Slayer pondered for a moment. Forget it. The situation in Bright Town is quite complex now. I'll stay there for a while and serve as your spy? You have such good intentions, Lin Tian said in slight surprise. Wasn't she devoted to slaughtering goblins? Now she planned to help them. Goblin Slayer strolled across the river. Because you are mine. It seems I've also found my own path. She waded through the river, disappearing into the dense forest. Hope you truly have. Lin Tian watched her departing figure, then headed toward the cave. He took a deep breath. I really can't handle her. Fortunately, she increased my attribute points by over 500. Truly a woman with royal blood. She was different from Gobu Yue, who was purely a female goblin. Whereas Gobu Yue was purely a female goblin. He then checked his current attribute strength. Lin Tian, LV55. Race, goblin. Profession, none. Title, blasphemer. Potential god. Injected with royal blood. God's blessing. Health, 1600. Strength, 410. Defense, 470. Skills, swordless take. Keen, awe-inspiring 18 styles. Flashback, grow and shrink. Equipment, fine iron armor, fine short sword. Elemental hand crossbow. Overall, 200. Lin Tian was quite satisfied. Most satisfying was the extra achievement. Injected with royal blood, gain 100 life points. Old readers, please note, previous modifications indicate that obtaining new titles can also grant life points. Lin Tian then entered the cave. Boss, you're here. We were just about to start a barbecue. Do you have any of that seasoning you used before? Gobu-shan asked. Gobu-kwang laughed foolishly. That stuff makes everything taste better. Barbecue. Upon hearing this, the captured people showed expressions of terror. Don't kill me. I can still be saved. If you're going to kill me, just do it quickly. I don't want to be roasted alive. Goblin Slayer. That traitor. Where is the Sword Saintess? Hasn't she recovered yet? Can't she save us? Father, I will sacrifice myself for the honor of our family. Sob sobbed. The ones speaking were those strung up, including Cecil. The cave echoed with their cries of despair. It truly was like hell. Next to them, Loader, who was tied up like a dead dog, slowly opened his eyes. His blurry vision gradually cleared. When he saw Cecil, he couldn't help but mock. Cecil, is it really you? Cousin, you're still alive. Cecil was stunned, eyes full of shock. How many months had it been since he was captured by goblins? And yet he was still alive. Unbelievable. Loader snorted. Alive? You could die and I still wouldn't die. I will never die. Cecil didn't care. You look like you're better off dead. How pitiful. The once glorious Stantmont family has come to this? In the noble circles? It was well known that Loader had become a disciple of the Sword Saintess. Ads by Pub Future. The Stantmont family had risen, constantly mocking other families about their uncertain futures. Cecil's family had never been treated well by them. Now, Loader's situation proved that he wasn't doing much better. You idiot! Don't you realize you're also a fish on the chopping block? You'll definitely die before me. Loader continued to mock. Indeed, he wouldn't die because Lin Tian hadn't tortured him enough yet. Hearing this, Cecil was puzzled. Isn't the Sword Saintess your master? She didn't come to save you. Maybe you're too weak for her to bother mentioning that name. Loader's face darkened immediately. He suddenly roared without warning. Shut up. Don't mention that bitch. That selfish bitch. She abandoned me for her so-called justice? So the Sword Saintess lives up to her title as the guardian of the Holy Sword. Cecil was laughing. Suddenly, his expression froze, because a terrifying scene was unfolding nearby. Gobu Kwang picked up a bone skewer and began sprinkling barbecue seasoning on a cleaned and prepared live human, manipulating a live person like a kebab. The seasoning was a mix of wild mint, cinnamon, bay leaves, rosemary, thyme, pepper, garlic, chili, and ginger. As the person was marinated, Gobu Kwang licked his lips. After seasoning the first skewer, he prepared to season the second, planning to cook them all at once. Gobu-shan suddenly grabbed the bone skewer, a sinister look on his face. Hey, no rush. Roast them one by one. Let the others be filled with fear and despair. Their muscles will tense up, making the meat tighter and tastier. You really know how to enjoy it. Alright then. Gobu Kwang sat by the campfire, waiting for the feast. Hearing this, the other captives were scared to the point of nearly soiling themselves. That beast, so cruel. Gobu-shan began the barbecue. As the flames touched the skewer, it first burned off all the hair. Please turn me over. It's burning. My balls are burning. The man's face twisted in pain, screaming until his throat was hoarse. However, Gobu-shan had no intention of turning him over. He used his regrown bone tail to brush oil on the skewer. Lin Tian couldn't help but feel disgusted. You pervert. Who knew you'd even be perverted about barbecuing? Gobu-shan smiled innocently, a smile that was chilling. For goblins. The screams were a delightful prelude to a meal. Cecil trembled in fear, on the verge of tears. Watching the goblins feast, he was almost crying. Though a diamond-level adventurer, the moments before death were scarier than death itself. Loader had become numb, showing no emotional reaction. At this moment, Gobushan's sinister, blood-red eyes in the darkness locked onto the paralyzed Cecil. Fear crawled over his entire body. Cecil quickly pleaded, "Don't kill me. I'm a noble. I can give you money, women, anything you want. Just let me go." However, goblins didn't care about such things. Stop. Suddenly, Loder's voice rang out, decisive and strong. Cecil was full of surprise, slightly calming down. "Cousin, you..." Lintian became interested. "Oh, you useless dog, haven't spoken for so long, and now you finally have something to say. You're Lintian? Right. Let him go, and I will agree to any of your requests." Chapter 38. Chapter 40 and Chapter 41. Please check out Arthur Thoughts as I added a link to the manga. Chapter 40. The Path. I devoured the Goblin King and gained the power to control goblins. It was easy to slaughter that goblin dungeon. Goblin Slayer spoke with madness in her eyes. It was unsettling. Lintian never imagined this person's identity would be so complex. No wonder she was so powerful. But he asked, "Then what about that mysterious power of yours? How do you kill goblins so effortlessly? I can be considered one with royal blood. The goblin hierarchy is even stricter than humans. So, I mixed a bit of my body tissue into my weapons. When it enters other goblins, they experience an instinctive rejection. Simply put, it's a suicide mechanism etched into their genes to prevent any harm to the king and allows control over them." Goblin Slayer explained carefully. She possessed imperial blood, so she didn't have this suicide gene. With everything explained so clearly, Lintian considered accepting her. After all, she was essentially half goblin. No, she was practically a goblin in human skin. Assimilating into the group wouldn't be an issue. Lintian finally understood. No wonder you choose to wear such thick armor. It's to avoid being recognized by human, right? But why do you call yourself Goblin Slayer? Logically, she was a goblin. Yet, she was obsessed with killing goblins. My mother was raped and killed by goblins. Of course, I want to slaughter goblins. As for choosing to mate with strong goblins and then eating them, that's a personal interest. Goblin Slayer continued. Forced by her biological father, she watched her mother being raped and killed. Indeed, it would twist one's personality. She had a human body but a goblin's heart. So, she chose to mate with goblins, equivalent to mating within her species, driven by instinct. This was why she had proactively thrown herself at Lintian, but she kept jumping back and forth between the two races. The goblin side didn't accept her, and humans couldn't possibly accept her either. Thus, a goblin in human skin was born. Killing goblins. She did human things by killing goblins, while also thinking about mating with goblins. This behavior aimed to fill the void in her heart. Lintian looked at her, feeling a bit pitiful. In that case, join me? Seeing Lintian's serious expression, Goblin Slayer was stunned for a long time. She seemed unable to believe he would say such a thing, and from the heart too, a goblin would accept Goblin Slayer. But she had killed the Goblin King and so many goblins. Aren't you afraid of me? Don't you think I'm the enemy of goblins? I killed your king. After all, Goblin Slayer asked tentatively. She initially intended to manipulate Lintian and toy with him. Now the situation had become very interesting. Lintian shrugged, looking indifferent. What does killing the Goblin King have to do with me? You killed many goblins before. That has nothing to do with me either. We have similar identities, but I have chosen a clear path. A clear path? Hearing this, Goblin Slayer stood there thinking. How interesting. A gift from the heavens. To encounter such a beautiful creation as you, Kehehe. Don't get cocky. Letting you join me doesn't mean I'll be dominated by you. I'm the one in control. Understand. Lintian's expression changed, speaking sternly. Really? Then shall we play some more? Just now, when I asked you to change positions, you obediently did so, like a child being punished. Goblin Slayer said with an evil smile. Recalling this, Lintian felt ashamed and snorted coldly. Let's not bring that up. Throughout, Goblin Slayer was the one moving. After some teasing, Goblin Slayer pondered for a moment. Forget it. The situation in Bright Town is quite complex now. I'll stay there for a while and serve as your spy. You have such good intentions, Lintian said in slight surprise. Wasn't she devoted to slaughtering goblins? Now she planned to help them. Goblin Slayer strolled across the river. 'Cause you are mine. It seems I've also found my own path. She waded through the river, disappearing into the dense forest. Hope you truly have? Lintian watched her departing figure, then headed toward the cave. He took a deep breath. Phew, I really can't handle her. Fortunately, she increased my attribute points by over 500. Truly a woman with royal blood, she was different from Gobuyue, who was purely a female goblin, whereas Gobuyue was purely a female goblin. He then checked his current attribute strength. Lintian, Elvifahive. Race, goblin. Profession, none. Title, blasphemer. Potential god, injected with royal blood, God's blessing. Health, 1600. Strength, 410. Defense, 470. Skills, swordless take, keen, awe-inspiring 18 styles, flashback, grow and shrink, equipment, fine iron armor, fine short sword, elemental hand crossbow. Overall, 200. Lintian was quite satisfied. Most satisfying was the extra achievement. Injected with royal blood, gain 100 life points. Old readers, please note, previous modifications indicate that obtaining new titles can also grant life points. Lintian then entered the cave. Boss, you're here. We were just about to start a barbecue. Do you have any of that seasoning you used before? Gobushan asked. Gobukwang laughed foolishly. That stuff makes everything taste better. Barbecue. Upon hearing this, the captured people showed expressions of terror. Don't kill me. I can still be safe. If you're going to kill me, just do it quickly. I don't want to be roasted alive. Goblin Slayer. That traitor. Where is the Sword Saintess? Hasn't she recovered yet? Can't she save us? Father, I will sacrifice myself for the honor of our family. Sob sob. The ones speaking were those strung up, including Cecil. The cave echoed with their cries of despair. It truly was like hell. Next to them, Loader, who was tied up like a dead dog, slowly opened his eyes. His blurry vision gradually cleared. When he saw Cecil, he couldn't help but mock. Cecil, is it really you? Cousin, you're still alive. Cecil was stunned, eyes full of shock. How many months had it been since he was captured by goblins, and yet he was still alive? Unbelievable. Loader snorted, alive. You could die and I still wouldn't die. I will never die. Cecil didn't care. You look like you're better off dead. How pitiful. The once glorious Stampmont family has come to this. In the noble circles, it was well known that Loader had become a disciple of the Sword Saintess. The Stampmont family had risen, constantly mocking other families about their uncertain futures. Cecil's family had never been treated well by them. Now, Loader's situation proved that he wasn't doing much better. You idiot. Don't you realize you're also a fish on the chopping block? You'll definitely die before me. Loader continued to mock. Indeed, he wouldn't die because Lin Tian hadn't tortured him enough yet. Hearing this, Cecil was puzzled. Isn't the Sword Saintess your master? She didn't come to save you. Maybe you're too weak for her to bother mentioning that name. Loader's face darkened immediately. He suddenly roared without warning. Shut up. Don't mention that bitch. That selfish bitch. She abandoned me for her so-called justice. So the Sword Saintess lives up to her title as the guardian of the Holy Sword. Cecil was laughing. Suddenly, his expression froze. Because a terrifying scene was unfolding nearby, Gobu Kwang picked up a bone skewer and began sprinkling barbecue seasoning on a cleaned and prepared live human, manipulating a live person like a kebab. The seasoning was a mix of wild mint, cinnamon, bay leaves, rosemary, thyme, pepper, garlic, chili, and ginger. As the person was marinated, Gobu Kwang licked his lips. After seasoning the first skewer, he prepared to season the second, planning to cook them all at once. Gobushan suddenly grabbed the bone skewer, a sinister look on his face. Hey, no rush. Roast them one by one. Let the others be filled with fear and despair. Their muscles will tense up, making the meat tighter and tastier. Heh, you really know how to enjoy it. Alright then. Gobu Kwang sat by the campfire, waiting for the feast. Hearing this, the other captives were scared to the point of nearly soiling themselves. That beast, so cruel. Gobushan began the barbecue. As the flames touched the skewer, it first burned off all the hair. Ah! Please turn me over. It's burning. My balls are burning. The man's face twisted in pain, screaming until his throat was hoarse. However, Gobushan had no intention of turning him over. He used his regrown bone tail to brush oil on the skewer. Lin Ting couldn't help but feel disgusted. You pervert. Who knew you'd even be perverted about barbecuing? Gobushan smiled innocently, a smile that was chilling. For goblins. The screams were a delightful prelude to a meal. Cecil trembled in fear, on the verge of tears. Watching the goblins feast, he was almost crying. Though a diamond-level adventurer, the moments before death were scarier than death itself. Loader had become numb, showing no emotional reaction. At this moment, Gobushan's sinister, blood-red eyes in the darkness locked onto the paralyzed Cecil. Fear crawled over his entire body. Cecil quickly pleaded, "Don't kill me. I'm a noble. I can give you money, women, anything you want. Just let me go." However, goblins didn't care about such things. Stop. Suddenly, Loader's voice rang out, decisive and strong. Cecil was full of surprise, slightly calming down. Cousin, you... Lin Tian became interested. Oh, you useless dog haven't spoken for so long, and now you finally have something to say. You're Lin Tian, right? Let him go, and I will agree to any of your requests. Loader was speaking seriously, appearing more clear-headed than ever before, moved to tears. Cecil hugged his leg and cried, "Cousin, I'm sorry for berating you earlier. Cousin." A prisoner dares to negotiate with me? Lin Tian showed no mercy and directly cut off one of Cecil's legs to roast. The paralysis caused no pain, but the brutal scene made him faint out of fear. A smile curved on Loader's gloomy face. Listen to me. How about letting him go? The family will definitely send many people to rescue me then. Are you out of your mind? What nonsense are you spouting? Lin Tian looked at him coldly. It seemed Loader's mind had completely collapsed. They finally understood why the Sword Saintess suffered a setback. The wandering hero couldn't help but exclaim, "The Grey Hats are all dead? Old Gru, I remember, had some strength. He's the only one who came back. They must all be dead." The bald man speculated. At this moment, Goblin Slayer's figure entered the tavern, speaking coldly. That's right, they're all dead. Only Cecil is alive. Goblin Slayer, you were in that battle too? Everyone was ecstatic, thankfully. There was someone alive to get details of the battle. Goblin Slayer nodded. I happened to meet them, but unfortunately, I arrived a bit late. By the time I got there, they were almost all dead. Only Cecil survived. She didn't understand why Lin Tian let him go, but she could only say this for now. The wandering hero asked, "What about those goblins?" "I killed them all," Goblin Slayer said indifferently. The entire room was stunned for a few seconds. Someone started clapping, followed by a wave of applause. "Sir, Drink as much as you want today. It's on the house, the tavern owner said excitedly. He had suffered from goblin attacks for a long time, and now that the menace was finally eliminated, he was thrilled. They hovered around a waterfall. The red-fanged bat smirked. The scent stops here. They're definitely inside. Let's go. With that, the swarm dove into the waterfall. Sure enough, they saw two big goblins patrolling inside. Bats, ignore them. Stay alert. The two large ones commented, paying no further attention. After all, why would monsters care about a bunch of bats? It was nothing unusual. The red-fanged bat led the way, quietly infiltrating deeper into the cave, reaching the living area. Inside, the goblins were all sound asleep. They were snoring blissfully. The bats didn't act immediately, but silently scoped out the entire cave. The red-fanged bat was surprised. There are so few goblins, and only one mutant variant. Could we have the wrong place? This seems like a medium-sized tribe. The members were puzzled. The red-fanged bat was sure, no mistake. With so many big goblins, it's just as Goblin Slayer said, let's feast. Drink your fill. Though goblin blood tastes bad, it's very nutritious. One bat said as it quietly climbed onto a sleeping goblin. Its sharp teeth gently pierced the skin like an ant bite, unnoticed by the deeply sleeping goblin. In just over 10 seconds, the previously robust big goblin turned into a dried corpse. The red-fanged bat also drank heartily. Tonight, drink to your fill. The cold-blooded mercenaries had killed many powerful opponents in this silent, deadly manner. Chapter 39, Chapter 42, and Chapter 43. Chapter 42, Countess. Why did your head start growing grass? Chapter 43, The Sword Saintess's Tears. In a short time, a dozen goblins had already been sucked dry and turned into mummies. Captain, you're too ruthless. You drained those goblins so dry, and so quickly. A bat couldn't help but comment. The red-fanged bat glared at it. Hurry up and suck them dry. It's not interesting at all. Let's finish early and get those 300 gold coins. They had thought they might get to drink the blood of a goblin overlord or something similar. But in the end, it was just a bunch of big goblins, with very few high-tier ones. Under the cover of night, death kept descending. No one noticed a thing. The entire cave was still silent and quiet. Lintian was sleeping in a separate small cave, with Gobu Yue, Leah, Cassandra, and Freya beside him. A bat carefully approached, seeing humans and elves, and couldn't help but feel overjoyed. He thought, this place is so remote. Quietly drinking some human blood shouldn't be a problem, right? Because they belonged to the Adventurers Guild. They had signed an agreement not to drink human blood, even if they killed someone. They couldn't drink the blood if they wanted to maintain their status and work in the Lionheart Empire. So, these vampires became adventurers, earning money to buy blood. This bat looked at Freya's extremely white neck and couldn't resist any longer. Money is hard to earn. Shit is hard to eat. Drinking here won't be discovered, driven by his bloodthirsty desire. He couldn't help but sink his fangs in. When his sharp fangs pierced that tender neck like tofu, instantly, a burst of holy light exploded. It directly illuminated the small cave and woke up Lintian and the others. Lintian woke from his sleep, raising his crossbow to attack, but saw no one. Only a very small shadow flew out. Sensing something was extremely wrong, he ordered, "You all stay here. I'll go check it out." In the cave, the bat had its teeth shattered completely. Damn it. A holy nun. Why is there a holy nun in a goblin cave? He would rather believe that someone had dug up his ancestral grave than believe this. But the holy light just now couldn't be mistaken. Captain, there's a holy nun. The bat flew to the living area's main cave and shouted urgently. The church's forces were like natural enemies to vampires. They didn't dare provoke them. Hearing this, the red-fanged bat, who was about to continue drinking blood, paused. Are you crazy? How could there be a nun in this cave? Everyone, be on alert. At this moment, a shout came from the depths of the cave. All the goblins got up and were on high alert. Lintian, seeing the group of bats, felt something was wrong. Goblins generally don't let bats into their caves. How come? As he was thinking this, he noticed some goblins hadn't gotten up. Upon closer inspection, he finally saw clearly. They had all turned into dried corpses, vampires. Lintian immediately thought of this, shouting, "Light the fire! Seal the exit." Gobushan and the others quickly began to act. In the pitch-dark cave, a raging fire was lit. The goblins surrounded all the bats in the center. Lintian said, "Dare to come here to drink blood? I want to see what you vampires can do." "Captain, what do we do?" a bat asked, but showed no sign of fear. The red-fanged bat started spinning rapidly, forming a cloud of black mist, which slowly descended and turned into a human form, wearing black light armor, with fair skin, and very elegant auburn hair. Lilith's eyes were sharp. "Since we've been exposed, let's start killing. It's just a group of goblins." As soon as she finished speaking, the remaining dozen goblins also transformed into human forms, and they were all women. The most venomous were women's heart. Lintian scrutinized her, deciding to check her attribute panel first. What he saw shocked him. Lilith, Alvusco. Race, vampire. Profession, nun. Titles, Countess. Immortal, God's Curse. Health, 1900. Strength, 500. Defense, 500. Skills, Blood Siphon. Bloodthirst, transform into darkness. Infection, equipment. Refined light armor. Overall, 2800. Such high attributes, almost 3000. The remaining vampires also had nearly 2,000 in strength. Damn, how could they possibly win? Wouldn't they be annihilated? Lin Tian quickly changed his tone. Madam, we can talk this out. No need to be like this. There's nothing to talk about. Didn't you want to see our abilities just now? Come on. Red Fang Lilith sneered. If they had been discovered when they first entered, they would have fled immediately. But now they were all full of blood. Their strength greatly enhanced. Why would they be afraid? Seeing her malicious intent, Lin Tian said, if we fight, neither of us will benefit. Vampires fear fire. Don't they? Red Fang Lilith sneered and snapped her fingers. All those dried goblin corpses on the ground stood up. Their eyes glowed red, and their fangs protruded. She had infected them all with vampirism. They surrounded them. Lilith continued. Do you think the fire will reach us first, or will you die first? Hallelujah. Suddenly, a burst of holy light attacked. It directly forced Lilith and the others to retreat behind the dried goblin corpses. It was Lin Tian standing upright, with his arms outstretched, forming the shape of a cross. My hair! A goblin. A goblin is posing as a cross. He actually shouted those 4 words? Holy shit. Pickled radish. Should we rush up and tear him apart first? This low-level goblin isn't simple. A group of vampires was dumbfounded. A goblin knew how to pose like this. Lilith also didn't react immediately and quickly said, tear him apart. Lin Tian quickly ordered, everyone, hold this pose like me. When all the goblins posed as crosses, the holy light actually illuminated the entire cave at that moment. If the church's people saw this, they'd probably exclaim in awe. Monsters using holy skills to fight other monsters. Both sides remained in a standoff. Neither moved, unless the other did. Finally, Lin Tian couldn't bear it anymore. This is pointless. How about we negotiate? Lilith was silent for a moment. Speak. Indeed, being bathed in holy light made it hard for them to move and very uncomfortable. What do you want? Lin Tian asked directly. Logically, vampires wouldn't specifically come to kill him, right? Lilith didn't hide it. We are an adventurer team from the human side. Someone posted a bounty, so of course, we came to kill you. Damn. So I was on a bounty list. No wonder so many adventurers came to Brighttown. Lin Tian realized. Then he asked, you vampires still need to earn money. He really couldn't understand what they needed money for. A vampire, displeased, said, don't we need money to buy blood? Do you think in the Lionheart Empire, we can kill people whenever we want? Guardian Holy Sword, Holy Church. Which of these are easy to mess with? I see. How about we cooperate? Lin Tian first canceled the pose, signaling the other goblins to cancel as well. There was no need to fight in this situation. Cooperation could be mutually beneficial. Seeing this, Lilith wanted to strike directly but held back. How do we cooperate? Lin Tian thought for a moment, feeling a bit embarrassed. Don't you need blood? How about I provide it for you? Boss. They are vampires. They need a huge amount of blood every day. At this moment, Leah ran out, worriedly saying. Lin Tian ignored her. Lilith snorted coldly. Your little bit of blood is not enough for long-term supply. You have guts. We can leave directly? She didn't expect goblins to exorcise demons. She had to admit defeat. Otherwise, they could have easily killed them all. Wait, I said it's enough. And it will be enough. Lin Tian stopped them, speaking seriously. Lilith and the others looked at her in surprise. In traditional Chinese medicine, there are records stating that the kidney governs essence and blood. It's the most important organ for a person. To be healthy, you must avoid kidney deficiency? Hearing this, a group of vampires was confused and naive, asking in detail, what do you mean? Lin Tian coughed, suppressing his embarrassment. It's literal. Medical research has shown it. Moreover, a type of monster discovered this special effect long ago, which is the succubus. Otherwise, why would they extract everywhere without harming lives or stealing money to gain such good nutrition? Who would resort to theft or murder? You know, we goblins lack everything but that. We can form a long-term cooperative relationship, ensuring you don't run out of blood to drink. Seeing they seemed unbelieving, Lin Tian immediately prepared to demonstrate. This was a conclusion of Chinese medicine culture, and Lin Tian firmly believed the effect would be the same. Lilith roughly understood. After much thought, she found this method feasible, but it had to be tested first. She reached out to take it. A vampire behind her pulled her back. Captain, we are the Count's wives, although he is sealed. Aren't we supposed to wait for him? Yes, this is too disrespectful to the Count. If this is true, we can wait safely without taking risks. Wouldn't that be better? Over the centuries, how many sisters have died? Don't you know? As the captain and the rightful wife of Count Dracula, Lilith had to bear a certain responsibility. Without hesitation, she walked towards Lin Tian. After all, it was just for the sustenance of life, without any further relationship. It didn't count as betraying the Count. When Lilith drank the blood, as her bloodthirst was suppressed, she couldn't help but feel excited. It really can replace blood. Everyone, we no longer need to take risks every day, as long as we cooperate with these goblins? No way. We should have discovered this earlier. Damn succubi monopolized this information since ancient times. Is this true? Let me try. A vampire couldn't resist trying. The result was uncontrollable. One after another, they tried, and without exception, it was true. The bloodthirst in the vampires' bodies could be suppressed. Lin Tian was almost turning into a dried corpse. Leah, support me a bit. Huff, huff. Boss, you've worked hard, Leah said with a mix of amusement and concern. At this moment, Lilith became serious. Goblin, I agree to your cooperation. What do you want in return? It's simple. Just protect this cave from intruders. I won't make you go out either. It's perpetually dark here. You can stay unrestricted. Lin Tian spoke solemnly. Recruiting these vampires wasn't just because he had no other choice. He hadn't tested the vampire race yet. It was a great opportunity to improve the group's quality and gain attributes. However, he did feel a bit sorry for their count. Alright, I agree with you. I just didn't expect a low-level goblin to possess such intelligence to communicate this way. Lilith said straightforwardly. A trace of a sly smile flashed in Lin Tian's heart. It definitely couldn't be rushed now. To test it, he had to slowly develop her feelings. He then explained the situation there and made some agreements with them. Lilith and the others were arranged perfectly, to the point where they felt a bit moved. I appreciate your actions. As long as the invaders in your cave aren't too strong, we will do our best to help, Lilith said. Then, here's to a pleasant cooperation. Lin Tian extended his hand. At that moment, Lilith's expression showed a surprising change. Human-like habits, although she was a vampire. She had been human before becoming one. Lilith then added, no wonder the Sword Saintess was driven to isolation by you. Of course, we mean strong opponents like her. I understand. By the way, what's the deal with the Count you mentioned? Lin Tian asked tentatively. After all, it was akin to cuckolding someone's wife, and several at that. If he was very strong and came for revenge, it would be disastrous. Lilith's face showed obvious sadness as she said, he is our husband. A vampire who has lived for thousands of years? Unfortunately, he is imprisoned in the temple by the church. The church spared us from punishment as we were forced to become vampires. Upon hearing this, Lin Tian roughly understood. Since he was imprisoned by the Holy Church, there was no need to worry about him escaping for now. Lin Tian looked at her and said with concern, don't worry. When I become strong enough, I'll go overthrow the church. You see, even a saintess of the church has been completely subdued by me. Really? Really? Lilith's face showed the expression of a virtuous wife, not expecting someone to be willing to help her husband. Lin Tian nodded. Absolutely true. You're also tired? Go rest now. He then supported her delicate, fair hand and led her into a small cave. The vampires behind them looked at Lin Tian differently. After Lin Tian left, he heard the group of vampires discussing. Oh my, how can I see romance and responsibility in a goblin? Seriously, I could cry. Who understands, after wandering for hundreds of years, now given a place to settle by a goblin? Madam, don't you think he is reliable? The group of vampires, being women, immediately switched to gossip mode. Lilith, however, remained steadfast. Stop it. We belong to the Count. We can't do this. If anyone talks about not waiting for the Count to come out, I can't help her. At the cave entrance, Lin Tian slowly revealed a smug smile. This was the charm of a virtuous wife, maintaining chastity, resisting strongly, but ultimately falling step by step into the clutches, unable to extricate herself. It was almost like gaining a virgin bride. Lin Tian left the small cave with a wicked smile, planning to take a nap. For now, there was no rush. In Bright Town, the tavern was brightly lit all night. Many people stayed up, waiting for news from the cold-blooded mercenaries, but by dawn, there was no news. The tavern owner sighed. I think they failed too. Everyone go rest. I can't hold on any longer. If you want a drink, serve yourselves, and remember to pay. Upon hearing this, the others didn't show any sign of fatigue. Instead, they were filled with fear. They couldn't accept the repeated defeats. Even the vampires, who were immortal, had failed. Only holy attacks could cause fatal damage to them. Slowly, everyone's eyes turned to the wandering hero. He was now the only diamond-level adventurer here, feeling the pressure of their gazes. The wandering hero quickly said, why are you all looking at me? I'm here to slay dragons. Who cares about those goblins? If you want to fight, can't you gather all your strength and attack together? But how would we split the bounty? The bald man asked. Most adventurers, 9 out of 10, were in it for the money. Otherwise, who would risk their lives? The goblin disaster had nothing to do with them. It was all about the bounty. The wandering hero snorted. Do whatever you want. I'm not interested. Coward? A voice suddenly echoed in the tavern, then quickly faded. The wandering hero was so angry he jumped up. Which bastard? Am I a coward? I'm here to slay dragons. Goblins are trash not worth my time. No one in the tavern responded. Just when they thought the tavern had quieted down, several voices rang out again. Coward! Who the hell are you fooling? Diamond level. More like dog shit. This caused the tavern to erupt into a noisy uproar. In a corner of Bright Town, there was a dilapidated little house. The interior was simple, with a gray little bed, a cracked wooden table, and a single stool. In the corner was a dusty platinum longsword and a pile of armor. Because of the loud commotion in the tavern, the Sword Saintess slowly woke up. At this moment, her golden hair was disheveled, not knowing how long she had been lying there. Though awake, she didn't sit up. Her blue eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, lost in thought. Suddenly, she noticed something under the door crack. It was an envelope from that mysterious person. After hesitating for a long time, the Sword Saintess decided to check it. Throwing off the covers, she had already removed her armor and was wearing a casual white nightgown. Her slender waist seemed like it could be gripped with one hand. The nightgown only covered up to her thighs, revealing a captivating expanse of white skin. Her jade-like feet were as tender as a baby's skin, an excellent product for soaking in milk. However, there were faint scars on the soles of her feet. These were from when she realized she had been tricked at the broken bridge and had to sprint back dozens of miles within half an hour. At the time, she didn't notice her feet had become a bloody mess when she got out of bed. The Sword Saintess staggered and almost fell. She smiled bitterly. How long have I been lying here? I can't even feel my legs. She then picked up the letter. Upon seeing the image of a lion with its mouth wide open on the cover, she knew who had sent it. It was from the Emperor of the Lionheart Empire, Emperor Lionheart. To Alicenia, I heard your powerful sword will was defeated by a group of goblins. I know that isn't the case. You were defeated by yourself. I told you long ago, don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes it's okay to go wild, to forget yourself. Be like a lion. Emperor Lionheart. Charles II. Reading these lines, a blue tear, as blue as the ocean, inexplicably rolled down the corner of the Sword Saintess's eye. She had even forgotten that her name was Alicenia. Yes, I am Alicenia. I am not just a sword. I am a person. Alicenia muttered to herself, her expression subtly changing. From her ocean-like eyes that embraced her people, it wasn't tears that flowed. It was herself. She was crying for herself. After a long days, her gaze finally turned to the dusty sword in the corner. At this moment, the tavern was still noisy. The wandering hero, exhausted from arguing with everyone, was left breathless. He was being verbally attacked from all sides. An old man then spoke up. This coward, I've had enough of him. Hiding in the corner, pretending to be a master for so long. And what do we get? A worthless piece of shit. Old man, do you want to die? Finally, the wandering hero could no longer bear it. A white ball of light appeared in his hand. He was ready to use force to shut them up. But then he saw a familiar figure standing at the door, tall and imposing like a mountain. The Sword Saintess. The wandering hero quickly retracted his attack, forced a smile, and bowed. Sword Saintess. It's great that you've recovered. Sword Saintess. Everyone turned their heads, and upon seeing it was the Sword Saintess, they almost jumped with excitement. But no one forgot their respect. All bowing and greeting in the Lionheart Empire. Only the Emperor received the same level of respect as the Sword Saintess. Her path of protection was admired and respected by everyone. Alicenia gestured for them to be quiet. I am glad you have come to support Brighttown. Everyone. It's time to put an end to this. I will not give them any more chances to breathe. She had originally planned to deal with Dragon Island and then the goblins alone. Now, with so many people, it was much easier. Hearing this, everyone looked a bit embarrassed. Support. They weren't here for charity work. But since the Sword Saintess had spoken, they were too embarrassed to clarify. The tavern owner sighed. Are you still adventurers? If you are willing to help, you can drink all the wine in my tavern. Drink until you're full. All right, we'll do whatever the Sword Saintess says. Clear out those who threaten Brighttown. Boss, you are generous. Actually, we would follow the Sword Saintess anyway. Hearing everyone's fighting spirit, two more groups of adventurers walked in from outside. The leader was named Edison, dressed like a Western gunslinger, with a simple flintlock pistol at his waist, but he was a diamond-level adventurer. Leading a team called the Gunslingers, the other group was also diamond level. Edison spoke first. I am willing to help the Sword Saintess uphold the path of protection. It's just a little effort. Count me in. Diamond level. Great, someone exclaimed with joy. But some were indifferent. With the Sword Saintess in action, isn't it a given we can handle a bunch of goblins? Upon hearing this, everyone realized they all sighed. I almost thought he was showing off. Isn't he just here to help out? With the Sword Saintess doing the heavy lifting, wasn't everyone else just assisting? Or rather, they were just freeloading for glory. No, this time we will split into two groups. One will deal with the goblins, the other with Dragon Island. Alicenia interrupted them. Edison, who had been deflated, straightened up again. Who did you say was here to freeload? Don't team up with me. Sword Saintess. How should we split the team? The wandering hero asked.